All right, here we're briefly going to take a look at creating line plots and box and whisker plots given a set of data. So here's a set of data we have, and this could really represent anything. So let's just say, for example, this represents the scores of a professional basketball team over a certain number of games. The first thing we can do to show this distribution is to make a line plot. And to make a line plot, we simply need to start with a number line. I found that my number line should go from 60 to 100. That would encompass all of my data. And all we're going to do is mark each data point at each spot. So I have a 67 is going to get an X, 100, 94, 77, 80, 62, 79, 68, 95, 86, 73, and 84. Okay? So this just shows me the distribution of all of my data. And one nice thing about a line plot is it does help me to easily see some different things. For example, one of the really easy things to see from a line plot is the mode. Obviously, the one that has the most X's above it is the one that's going to be the mode of my data. In this case, they all only occur once, so the mode would be, there would be no mode in this case. We can also do some things like describe the shape of the distribution, which you will take a look at in a different video, but I would say that this data is pretty symmetrical. I have 80 looks to be about in the center, and there's an equal number or almost an equal number of data points on either side of it, and they are pretty evenly spread apart. So I would say this is a pretty symmetrical set of data. The other thing that we can do to kind of describe data is to make a box and whisker plots. And the first thing we need to do to make a box and whisker plot is to go ahead and order our data from least to greatest. Now, since I've already put it on a line plot, it's going to be pretty easy for me to go ahead and order this stuff together. So I've got 62, 67, 68, 73, 77, 79, 80, 84, 86, 94, 95, and 100. And I'll just go back to make sure that I have them all. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 data points down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 data points up there. Good. So now that I've checked, I've made sure that I've got all of my data points. Now when I make a box and whisker plot, the first thing that I need to come up with is what we call the 5-number summary. And this is the 5 key parts of my data. And the 5-number summary is going to be made up of the minimum, or sometimes you'll hear it called the lower extreme. We have the first quartile, which we call Q1, or quartile 1. We have the median. We have Q3, which is the upper quartile. As a side note, I could call Q1 the lower quartile. And then I have the maximum, which is sometimes also called the upper extreme. These 5 numbers make up the 5-number summary of my data. And we're going to go through first and figure out what these 5 numbers are. The minimum and the maximum are pretty easy to see. The minimum is the lowest value, which is 62. The maximum is the highest value, which is 100. The next easiest one for me to find is the median. You should remember how to find the median. I'm going to kind of eliminate from both ends on my way in. I do not like to cross the whole number out because I want to be able to see what it is. So I'm just going to put a little mark above it. 62 and 100 go together. 67 and 95. 68 and 94. 73 and 86. 77 and 84. Now I'm down to 2 left. So you should remember that the median is going to be right in the middle of them. So between 79 and 84, or 79 and 80, excuse me, I'm going to take the average of those, and I'm going to come and get 79 and a half is my median. Right? Now, the lower and the upper quartiles just split the remaining sets of data into 2. So I'm finding the median of the lower half of the data and the median of the upper half of the data. So I like to go ahead and box these things in. So Q1 is going to be the median of the left box. Q3 is going to be the median of the right box. And it's very important to remember that when you find the upper and lower quartiles, don't include the median. So I had to find the average my median of 79.5. If you didn't need to find the average, if you had an odd amount of data points in your data set, then you would just not include that in there at all. So there would be one number in between your two boxes, just kind of like I have here. So let's go ahead and go through it again. Now I can cross them off a little bit lightly. 62 and 79, 67 and 77. Again, I have a number not in the middle, so I need, or I'm sorry, no clear number. I need to take the average of 68 and 73, which is going to give me 70.5 as my lower quartile, or Q1. And then my upper quartile, I'm going to do the same thing. 80 goes with 100, 84 goes with 95. I'm finding the middle of 86 and 94, which is 90. So my upper quartile is 90. So this is what we would call the 5-number summary. Okay. Now all we need to do is make a box and whisker plot using our 5-number summary. We're going to start by plotting the minimum, or the lower extreme, and the maximum, the upper extreme. And we plot everything, these with the dots. So 62, I'm going to come above the number line, not on the number line, above the number line. 62 is my minimum. 100 is my maximum. Okay, so 162 get dots. The other guys get lines. So the lower quartile is a 70.5. It's going to be right here. So it's going to get a box. That's going to be the lower side of my box. Median 79.5 gets a line. That's going to be the middle of my box. Upper quartile is 90. Okay, and then I'm going to connect these 3 lines to make a box. Then I'm going to connect the box to my minimum and maximum. And there is my box and whisker plot to represent this data. Again, we can describe the shape of this distribution, which you'll see in another video. I can see here that this looks pretty symmetrical. If I were to fold it over the median right there, I would get almost identical. So this would be what we would call symmetrical data. Okay. You're also going to be watching another video that helps you to describe the variability. These boxes are fairly big, so I would say here that this is fairly varied data. One other thing that I could calculate to help me determine how varied they are is called the IQR, or the interquartile range. And we should know that to find the actual, just the regular range of this data, we would take the maximum minus the minimum. So here would be 100 minus 62, which would give me 38. So my data is fairly spread out. The interquartile range is just the range of our quartiles, Q3 minus Q1. In this case, it would be 90 minus 70.5, which would give me 19.5. So my IQR here is 19.5, which is fairly spread apart. One quick thing to note about box and whisker plots: what do they actually mean? What is it actually telling me? Each part of your box and whisker plot is worth 25% of your data. So this part right here is 25% of the data. This box is 25% of the data. This box is 25% of the data. And the upper line is 25% of your data. So 25% of the time, I would say this team scored between 70.5 points and, what is that, like 80 or 79.5 points. So a quarter of the time, that's what they scored. So that's one way that you can read a box and whisker plot.